The Outer Shell, Lisa and Livingstone. Now, these two people, the reason why I chose these two people because this is a very, very important message. What happened is society tried to breathe a message between these two people, and they were the exact opposite of what they were. They can text message you all they want, but when you see them in person, they crackle down. You understand what the true character is. This is a story about how society creates a suicidal around a human being, and literally they can't carry it because the person they created the suicidal with can't carry the weight. And you know what that means? A Susanoo is kind of like, like an outer night, that's made of aura and stuff. If you watch Naruto and stuff, a Susanoo is a big outer shell. It's a ghost that's a night that surrounds you. And it's the ultimate shield. But what people have in real life, they have shit equivalent to a Susanoo. And I'm making an anime reference for this because you know why? Because literally, it's easy to break them once you become that level. But literally, there's two ways to be a Susanoo. One, wait for them to get sick and watch them boil over, or two, get a whole allied shinobi forces to break them, especially if they're premature, because it's not about the Susanoo, it's the person wielding it. And that's why Madara was a way better Susanoo user than Sasuke. Yes, I can say that and talk about real life too, because this is the whole meaning of why. These were two people who had people support them through her text messages in order to fool me for reverse psychology. Lisa had a whole bunch of girls, literally, texting her, giving her advice, literally, about what to do when I try to leave. And Stone had this impression that, literally, because I beat him in his first battle, and because it was his first battle, I don't have to prove it to him when I get older. And literally, what he did was he literally said, it doesn't matter if you beat me my first battle, you're still autistic because that's all you do. You're obsessed with anime and stuff like that. I actually come from a real black family. I actually come from this and that. That's why I was able to roast the shit out of you, and that's why I'm better in real life. And then once real life really went on, it turned out to be the holy Omega Shinron, the exact opposite. But he had a pretty good mask. And you know why? That is the whole point of this video. They bred two lies with continuous storylines. One lasted longer than the other. Well, one wasn't nearly as effective because one was about nerds and the other one had to require action. You don't understand. So what happened was, let's start off with, I would say, Lisa, since I do kind of like talk about Livingstone, it's an interesting topic. I literally he tried saying that like I was on his dick and stuff like that, I roasted the shit out of him, and that's the master he has. Literally, he's like, hop off my dick respectfully. It's been years. I'm like, yeah, you've been sexually harassing Layla, you've been sexually harassing Newty, literally this and that. Literally, it was so fucking funny. That was the last time I fucking texted him and shit. And it was so funny because literally he's like, why have I been on your mind for years? I know you have autism, but please hop off my dick respectfully. I'm like, dude, you are not a platinum boy. Dude, you are fucking nothing. Even with autism, I'm better than you. You see how that's harder than anything he fucking ever said? That's the shit I hold back against him because I'm a grown man. I was trying to get him to cooperate, but it didn't fucking matter. So I started roasting the fuck out of him, and I left on a good note. And that was literally the funniest shit ever because literally he thought he had it in the bag. I'm like, dude, you don't understand. This is why most rappers are autistic. This is why I actually work for the media industry, so Livingstone couldn't put that over my head. But what he could do was stop me from cooperating and delay me from getting my shit on paper, and that's why it was so fucking frustrating. It was really, really fucking horrible. The same thing with Lisa. Lisa stopped me from getting into a con relationship. I could have got into a con with her girlfriend that would have made my reputation look better. One, it would show that I can network with a woman. Two, it shows that I can network with a team, a partner in general. Three, it could have showed that I literally am not just a one-man band and I can do so much more with two people, literally. And it was so fucking horrible. They both delayed my fame because of their bullshit-ass messages and what they wanted to get across. Every single time I feel like I'm standing up to them, like, come on, what is it with this bullshit angle? I'm actually just fighting a ghost. And I realized that over time. Every single time that literally I think I'm standing up to them, I'm really standing up to 10 and 3 people, literally. I'm really just fighting a fucking ghost. And it really fucking sucks. So you know what you do when you realize that you're up against a ghost? You recognize that it's a ghost and you let it talk that shit. You let it do whatever the fuck that it can because it can't harm you, it can't do shit. And I learned that over time. The air roll is hot shit if you participate in that game. But where if you straight up say, so what the fuck you gonna do to me over a computer screen? When you put it in that context, they're useless. But if you participate, then that defeats the purpose. And that's the catch 22 of the air roll. If you're in the chat, you have to abide by their word or else you get kicked out. Bottom line, simple. It's quite simple. If you don't like it, hang out with us. But what really makes it cringy is the fact that they have tons and tons of potential and they're shoving it in my face for bait. And they abuse it and shit like that. But literally, it came over time. Then I realized that the air rolls a whole bunch of hacked HTML codes. That we have the same people commenting. That it's a really dead fan base. That it was no reason. And the whole thing with Lisa, It had nothing to do with her specifically. What it had to do was her outer image. And so let's go into Lisa. So Lisa was this girl who was specifically sent because I sleazeballed Jordan, and I sleazeballed her for a good reason. I didn't actually sleazeball her. What I did was I asked for respect. I was heavy on MGTOW at the time. I made this big time video. If you watch Whole Cake Island in One Piece, that one scene where Pudding is telling Sanji outside that she doesn't give a shit about him. Lily, he's like, my family used to beat me and just like that, and she's laughing on the inside. I don't give a shit. That's how girls are in real life. They are. That is none of their business. You can't confess your personal problems to a girl and expect them to be comforting. No, you can't. That's dangerous. That's a turnoff. But that's exactly why people put you through those problems. I learned that over time. Livingstone and the whole ARL did the same thing to me when I was with Abby. I just kept on texting her depressing shit on top of depressing shit, but they're the ones who gave me those depressing times. And that is all connected to that message. The reason why is because girls are very positive creatures. Girls are really fun-loving and stuff like that, like Zoe 101, fucking Nickelodeon shit. That's how girls work. We feel like girls work on ratchet shit and that they only work on love and hip-hop and shit, where really girls are fun-loving, like butterflies and shit. But since we are forced to, like, literally think masculine in fucking society and this and that, like, we think that that's the only thing that girls like, or really girls just like to have fun. That's why they made that song. It's really, really, really simple. And we really chop over this every day. Girls just like to have fun. And they really slandered what the fuck Lisa was doing because Lisa knew she was doing wrong. So what happened was, Lily, she was sent there as reverse psychology. Like, Lily, you only get aware of pretty girls because they're not groomed properly. And so you're gonna send a fat girl with big tits in order to try and fool me? And shit like that. She's the same quality as the pretty girl. She has more options than a pretty girl because more men are desperate and she feels like she's easy. Instead of that, I know that they're not easy. So I asked, what's in it for me after a month of talking to her on straight punchlines? And she's like, that's why you're retarded and lonely and shit like that. It was so fucking funny. If it was to me a year ago, I would have started rolling. But what happened is they hooked me up for a job that was really, really fucking shitty while I was used to having that cool-ass arcade job. And literally, it was really, really fucking hurt. And like I was a courtesy clerk and shit. And so what happened was this, Lily, there was this Indian kid, I was doing pretty fucking good. They even tried, like, fooling me. They kept on saying, like, Lily, oh, he might not be able to make it at FanMade 2019. Before I even got to the 19 part, Lily fucking, they kept on saying, oh, he's not going to FanMade, but we're going to make him think that he's going to FanMade, and they're going to let him in, and we're going to do whatever we can. It doesn't matter if he tries to avoid grabbing ass. We're going to torture him until he does grab ass, Lily. And then they even tortured me on the job. Lily trying to fool me, trying to say, you're not going to FanMade, but you are going to FanMade. You're not going to FanMade. And I was fucking confused, but I was still keeping that stage job, so you know what they did? It's like, oh no, it's not enough. So what happened was, an Indian kid got a nose energy drink and started drinking it in front of me after I made my first Nas video, and he started drinking it, and I started shaking and shit like that. And there was a kid with a mental condition that I was cool with because, you know, I'm not about the street life anymore. And I started mumbling, I'm like, because I'm paranoid about Nas and literally this and that, because that outweighs FanMade. And I was training hard for FanMade, so this Indian kid literally fucking cracks this nose bottle in front of me, like, like a fucking cartoon and shit. Literally trying to get me off balance at work. So literally, they did all this shit to get me fired. And literally, I was doing basically okay. I could have came back, but that was the icing on the cake that I was tripping. And so this girl named Tati, who was kind of like autistic and shit, she's like, what's wrong and stuff like that? Why are you like, she didn't know the whole story. I'm paranoid because somebody is trying to steal Nas and shit. And it was so crazy. They did all that pressure at my job, and then I finally got fired after all that pressure. It did automatically after FanMade shit, after they mislabeled me a predator, after they see my face on a wire post and shit like that. Lisa hits me with, that's why you're retarded and lonely. After all that manipulation, I was forced to literally take that into consideration. That was the biggest ghost of all time, Lily. Not only was that when I wasn't macking as much, when they cockblocked me way more, that was at the time when they tried to literally shove the fact that Lily, they think that I'm retarded in my face, and Lily, it didn't work because the fact that I can get another one remained above all the time. And she knew that the entire time. So what they did with Lisa is literally, they made Lisa seem more smart than what she actually was. Because the Lisa that I was texting wasn't that clever. I'm like, how is she clever? I know her. I thought she was saving up that was something. But literally, what happened was there was a whole bunch of people like supporting her after that. She's like, oh, don't worry, he's in love with you. And this and that. He wouldn't be texting you all those quality of text messages if literally he wasn't in love with you and shit like that. And she kept on believing her over and over again. Even some of the rappers I worked with tried to get in her pants and shit. Raven kept on leading her on. You know, I'm not afraid to say this and shit like that. This isn't snitching, but this doesn't mean shit because guess what? Raven's fucking famous. He can get in and out of jail all he fucking wants. and shit like that. And that's the reason why I didn't have it on paper, because Raven kept on getting rejected by the girls that I was getting on Snapchat with ease. And I'm not afraid to say that, because I'm the one who put them on. So I'm not fucking caring. So what Raven tried to do was Raven tried to hop on the bandwagon after that, and Lily tried to convince Lisa that, Lily, I'm only getting girls to my clothes, I'm only getting girls to my swagger, they don't actually like me for who I am, that's why I stay gorilling, and that's why I never take girls on dates, all this other bullshit and stuff like that. Lil didn't know that my fucking personality is equal to all those fucking dates. But on the way, what made this an outer shell, what makes this a Susano, is that this wasn't her original intention. She knew it was getting too far. Yeah, it really made her heart break, but they kept on putting emphasis on it in order to give her hope. Hope on top of hope on top of hope on top of hope. And it didn't work. Every single time. They even tried controlling the situation. Eris, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you can get another one. We're going to hack who you text. We're going to edit who's at the job. We're going to literally do this and that. It doesn't matter. Just give up. Just give up. And literally this and that. They want me to be submissive to her already, literally knowing that I have all these girls on the side, knowing that this and that. And literally, so you know what I did? I sat back and I stayed patient. I'm all like, you know what? If it's going to be unfair, then I'm not going to reply. And I'm literally going to sit back, and guess what? Everybody played themselves, and we really became a MGTOW society. But on the way, I started to forgive her and stuff like that, because I replaced her really easily, but the moral still stayed the same. But at the same time, it wasn't about the moral. The moral was a ghost, because that was a girl that would have been okay with letting me hit it if I would have kept on texting her, but they made me do it out of context. So I figured out of nowhere that literally that wasn't her who texted me that night, that was a girl that I didn't like in the past, that was ugly when I had all fine girls like that. It was an ugly girl, got the roast that hacked Lisa. This is the power of a ghost. That outer image and shit like that. She kept on saying, don't you think this is enough? Don't you think we've gone this a little too far? Like, he's obviously not getting this and that. And Raven and everybody else kept on tempting her and tipped her, this and that. And literally, fucking, it's over now. But fucking, this shit happened a long time ago. But anyway, fucking, Raven fucking, every single other person who tried to convince me that Lily, that she was right, stuff like that. Every single person that tried to blame my drip, and the only reason why I get women and shit is literally fucking freaking stupid, because what happened was this, literally fucking, they would always lead her on, and then they would try to rape her. They would tell her that I ate shit and this and that, and then they would give her hope, and she would fall for the same gang each and every single time. And literally, that's what happens in Lily. So what happened was, literally, that's what happens when you actually do have friends, and that's what it comes to eventually. It happened to so many people, and I understand that. And think about what reason why I liked what Lisa did as a person is because what happened is I was already scolding myself before she corrected me, because she hit me with everything I didn't have with her group home, the car, the actual fucking things on paper, shit like that, and it really got to me because of that, and I blamed it on my upbringing. But then I realized how gangs work. I realized that was eventually gonna happen. I realized that literally it was best for me to do this and that. It was really, I realized that was eventually gonna happen. Eventually, that I was eventually gonna be chased by a gang when it started to get definite, because literally they can still pull the, it comes to every time in a man's life where they keep on saying that the girl, that you slept with is imaginary, this and that, but they saw me grab too much ass at a convention, so it was already out. But they can do it if they make me a formal shell, if they try to make people forget about it. But nope. Trust me, when you fuck your first girl and you see that life stays the same, that you're literally just the same person, it's just a whole bunch of things going your way, you'll understand like how little girls impact your life when they put you in a situation where they don't matter. But that's also because he was an anime fan, and I give a lot to the anime community because I used to be just like them. I used to be very short-sighted when it came to real life, and it really, really sucked. But the reality of the situation is, if Lily, she didn't get influence from all those people, what she would have naturally done is she would have came to me myself, and she would have said sorry in person. But because they needed to keep the running gag up, because of this and that, she couldn't do that. And that is the honest to God truth. That's how girls work in general, like this and that. So this is a picture of Lisa. Pretty big tits, right? But this is the person who sent her. Yeah, so you know where this is going. So it didn't matter what she said. I thought about art principles. I thought about Stephanie. You don't know who Stephanie is? Go watch Stephanie and Furry about me and her couldn't be friends, because literally that's not how humans work. Literally, we talked about every nerd thing in the book, but we ended up literally, freaking, it couldn't be stable if we weren't intimate, because it gone too far. And that was crazy. You have to understand that. I thought about Jordan. I'm like, okay, so like, it's cool. You know what I thought that very night? It's better to be leading her on, so why don't I just ask for it right away? And so Lily just now, she was already sent by Jordan and stuff like that. And then she comes back with, you're retarded and lowly. And I literally say, coolio. the fact I could get another one was really dominant, especially since he was sent by another one. It was really horrendous though how they kept it up over and over and over again, because it got to a really bad spot. Literally, my brothers tried defending her and shit. Literally, they tried to be white knights. My brothers tried to be white knights for her. Literally, saying this and that. Like, there was a time when my brother took me to go see the My Hero movie, Heroes Rising and shit, and we had dab pen. And oh my god, I have to state this is very horrible. I remember back when I wasn't getting pussy, while I always had access to weed. Now it's literally, it's dreadful to me to get weed. Literally, fucking the dispensaries are overpriced. Literally, I fucking, all the freaking people who used to support me literally aren't in the area anymore. Freaking, I don't have a dealer. I don't have this and that. It was really out of pocket. So guess what happened at Heroes Rising? I want you guys to absorb this lesson. My brother gave me a dab pen before Heroes Rising, and every time I try to watch that shit, I try to replicate the first time I watched it with my brother. And before we got into the movie, he had a temper tantrum, like, just let me bitch and complain and stuff like that. Like, literally just, like, he started arguing because he realized he had a poker face for literally 45 minutes, but when we were about to get in the movie theater, he dropped his fucking, his fucking hand on the ground, and he's like, literally this and that. Be aware of this and that. Like, I was just saying this, I was just saying that. And you know why he was throwing a temper tantrum? Because he's doing all this for a girl with big tits. He's doing all this for a fat girl with big titties, and literally, he's bad and fuck like that because he's still virgin, hopping up and down, this and that, and he's taking it out on me, and this and that. He already paid for the fucking movie shit. That like, nigga, you want to see a movie and this and that? And that's the problem with that style. I keep on trying to tell people. I keep on trying to tell you, no matter how smooth you sound, you still have to be aware of the situation. Literally this and that, and it was fucking horrible because of that. Literally, he's thinking about, like, how does this guy get to literally, he gets to get the fat girl with big tits and eat something that I'm begging for, something that this and that, and he has tons of women on top of it, and he can make his way with a fat girl with no effort. What is wrong with him? And this and that is exactly why my brother was hopping up and down. But when I got into Heroes Rising, I was high as fuck off the dab, and it was fucking incredible. It was literally one of the best experiences I had at a movie theater and shit like that. And so literally, I get out and literally, I try to replicate, I try watching it again and again, and it couldn't match the first time I was dabbed out with my brother. And you gotta think about that. All that shit is connected. I have no more access to weed. My brother is getting no pussy, and the devil is in my head. Every time I try to replicate the same feel the first time I watched that movie, and the devil is all like, just face it, you can't beat Chris. Nothing's beating Chris. And I'm saying that in a funny way because he states plain and simple that that's his role, and it's because he's a virgin is why he has access to that dab, and that's the same reason why you're struggling. He said it in a very light tone. Face it, Eris, you can't be Chris. But you know what he was doing? I feel like that was kind of help because he's like, stop trying to replicate something when you were obviously heavily intoxicated, especially since it was your first experience and shit like that. Stop trying to replicate it, literally knowing damn well that that's the difference between you and him. And then later on, I was able to replicate it after literally fucking like damn near 10 times of me watching it. I was able to replicate it literally at the right amount of tree with the right, freaking mindset, literally, when everything's going my way, when things finally cooled down, I finally was able to top the time I watched it with my brother, but that was only because literally everything was really going my way. It took a while, but you know what? That's not the point. The point is the fact that literally I had that good ass time, and that's what it is to be a virgin versus a grown man. And the horrible thing about Lisa is I stood up for her, and literally she took advantage of it, but other people took super advantage of it only because he's an anime fan and he didn't know what she was doing and shit like that. I'm like, man, you have to understand that literally I feel for people. So let's go into Livingstone because Lisa is connected into Livingstone. That was the funniest part about me and him and the dynamic because literally fucking he watches MGTOW and he seen me go through MGTOW shit. He put me in a MGTOW situation. He helped me. He helped him try to like become, he helped him try to label me shit and shit like that. But it really, he listened to alpha male strategies way more than I do and shit. And he knows everything. He knows the exact complexity. But when I get in the ARL chat, he tries to pull it out, I'm a retard. And he can only pull it for that 1 second until I start capping back. And it literally, it destroyed him, but that's the outer shell. He tried it. Then I realized that literally, I already realized like literally over time that wasn't him. That was 3 people texting me that one day he so-called roasted me. But the reason why it was such a prominent figure is because they made him the star of ARL season 4. But then I come at him like this and like season 4 doesn't matter. We have a whole bunch of hacked fucking comments. We don't fucking have real fucking comments anymore. We are a dead fan base. and just like that. So why is Livingstone so proud? Because so many people put their faith in them. What they did was they would treat me like they weren't shit, and they would leave the chat. And some of the ringleaders like Philly and shit like that would leave the chat, and then they would leave it. Philly and fucking Troy, the same people who were texting me, would fucking leave the chat, and then they would leave Livingstone after I would roast them, and they would continue to running gag. That's how much strategy they use. I'm like, dude, this is fucking stupid. And it was really crazy. There was this time where I got kicked out, where I was homeless, and Livingstone continuously uses this style. And you know what tears Livingstone apart is that he realizes that I'm doing shit the right way. He tries to say that I'm doing shit the nigga way. What he's trying to do is he's trying to shove nigga shit down my throat, and he's telling me that I'm a nigga, and that really what he did was after I started pulling bitches up the group home, what he did was he made up in his mind that Riz is an actual hood nigga, and he's gonna end up dead. That's why when I roasted him, he died by. I'm like, you know what? He's still being haunted by that Mexican gang. They're on his same level in terms of intellect. They eventually got catch up to him when they never shot me once, when they never landed one hit. They never did anything to me, but he kept on relying on them because of the way they handled the situation. He's like, oh, well, they're aware that Riz is smart, and they keep on doing strategies on top of strategies every day. Eventually, he's got to get caught. At least this and that. What Livingstone came at me after I got past the yell. He thinks incredibly complex, but he forgets about the meaning. He keeps thinking that literally this where he was coming at is he was like this. He's like, Riz understands that he's dealing with a gag. He understands that they don't give up this other that. It doesn't matter if he has the lead because they won't give up. They're eventually got to catch up to him, and they're just as smart as him. I'm like, no, they're not as smart as me. They do not think the same pattern as me. I can tell them some shit to do specifically for them to fall into my trap. And you'll understand that, literally, he didn't respect power scaling, and that's the reason why he had the idea that eventually they'd catch up to me when they never caught up to me. And now he knows the full story about how I was already protected by the higher version of that gang. And then Lily, it really tore him apart. And that was the craziest shit about it. Is that Lily, he thought incredibly complex when the meaning was already destroyed. You don't understand, Lily. When I roasted him, this guy had a hole in his head. And he tried using that masculine frame against me, Lily. And I'm all like this. I'm like, I know exactly what you're thinking, Livingstone. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. You have a hole in your head, and Lily, you still are able to make that masculine frames. I'm sitting here dodging all this bullshit and stuff like that, and you're sitting over here trying to get the devil to be on your side. Let's face it, Eris, is a different context. I'm like, no, you're lazy. You sit on your ass with it. You don't put in work for shit. Of course you gotta be calm, cool, and collect. Because I know mental pain hurts way more than physical pain. That's why you're able to literally get past that yell, even though there's a hole in your head. And you think that's flipping my whole foundation. No, that's you being ignorant. That's why I did it the second time, because you already fell for the trap. I had that set up. That was my backup plan the whole entire time. You don't understand that, Lily. What happened was Lily, he tried to Lily do this and that, and Lily, and I literally tried to be nice. I'm like, okay, Livingstone, I know you ignored my messages, but Lily, please understand I have a whole lot to fall back on. And he's like, oh yeah, you know you lost a brain cell on the floor, a couple of days ago and stuff like that. And Lily, and then I went bad on him, and Lily, I started making him cry and shit like that. So Lily, that's why I felt empty. I'm like, you know what, Livingstone, you want me to be hard? Shut the fuck up. He's like, and then he pauses for a second. I'm like, you scared? He's like, Riz, I'm scared. Then what if I keep doing it? And then he paused for a second, and then fucking 30 seconds later, I'm just saying, you keep on staying, I'm scared and stuff like that, Lily. And then he had smooth, perfect delivery, but Lily, I could tell it was a low tone. So what he did was he did an acting technique, and he kept it on a low tone in order to convince me and shit like that. So I'm like, shut the fuck up. He's like, dude, I wasn't sexually harassing your girl for shit. I'm already in Arizona. I'm like, back it up with your actions. Back it up with your actions. And he didn't have to because he was behind a computer screen. But guess what happened? I'm like, you know what? I am so mad that I wasted energy on you, but that doesn't change the fact that I still have some ass to fall back on. And Lily, this and that. And so Lily, and that's why he cried, because he realized that. He realized the truth. It didn't matter if he got past the yell. It didn't matter if he kept that masculine frame. It didn't matter this and that. The reality of the situation kicked in, and he was all like, you're retarded. And then he kicked me out the car. I'm like, what happened to your masculine frame? What happened to that so-called style? What happened to this and that? I thought the fantasy was enough to keep you content. And then I learned later on to the fact that he literally expected action to be behind that. He expected that to be so fucking detrimental. If I get past his yell, it's gonna flip his entire foundation. And it shows him why he ain't shit. He's not comparing himself to people. He's not putting it to the test. And this and that, Lily, this and that. I'm gonna show him this and that. And he's gonna flip out, and I'm gonna get what I want. But I didn't flip out, and he didn't get the end result he wanted. What he did was he threw a big-ass spirit bomb, and I flicked their way. That's exactly what happened. He put all his energy into that one plan. I literally told you, literally straight up, I have a whole back to fall back on. And then he realized it at the end. and it made him cry. But that's the whole thing behind his past. But what kept Livingstone going? Why did he kept on going? Is because I used to be as ignorant as him, but it was for a different reason. But literally, I know people who got away with being more ignorant than him. I keep on trying to tell Livingstone, like, dude, you're a fake. You're not a good con artist. You're not this and that. I know how to be a way better con artist. You see how I sleazeball Lisa? I'm a way better con artist than you. I know how you're faking. So that's why I'm able to put it in front. That's why I was able to do it twice, okay? And that's why I was able to test you. I know exactly how you think. And the thing about Livingstone, he's very crafty. He's able to fool, like, literally, people who don't know him, but for people who have been hanging out with him, I've known him for almost a fucking decade. That's how I know how he ticks and shit like that. People will literally try to help him and give him hope, and he'll take advantage of the fact that they're giving him hope. And that's the type of snake he is. He takes every single opportunity until the fact where it's too late. So here's the real truth behind Livingstone before all that shit happened. But really the truth behind it is I told him this. I'm like, look, you know what, Stone? You kept on denying ideas. You kept on literally using the short bus excuse and this and that. When you knew everything was true, he saw me being a big town situation after big town situation. So guess what happened? He kept on playing it safe behind the computer screen. But then I met a girl named Karma that lived in Arizona. And so, literally, so I knew exactly what Livingstone was about to do. She has the perfect cleavage, perfect round butt, and stuff like that. So Livingstone, literally, he knows I can pull bitches like that. Literally, I put it out there. He was there incognito in Family. He wore a Spider-Man cosplay at Family the very first day when he saw me grabbing gas. And literally, fucking, he knew I was a nice person. I didn't hold it against him. I saw Bush too. And Bush, literally, Bushido actually dressed up as Bushido Brown. I'm like, you guys are horrible at incognito. You cosplay as Spider-Man. You expect me not to know it's you? And literally, he teamed up with fucking, and then when I looked at him when he was walking out of nowhere, he ended up doing the robot. And literally, I'm like, dude, you are horrible at incognito. That shit was hella funny. So literally, what happened was literally, I took a picture of Livingstone too when he was cosplaying, and so it's literally, I'm like, oh, so who's this Spider-Man? He's like, oh, this guy, this and that. He's from the other multiverse and this and that. I'm like, oh, so what's the difference? And he basically said what he just said just then, but literally, so I took a picture of Livingstone. And he's like, damn. Riz is really nice, like, and stuff like he does all this hard shit every day. Why is he so nice? And I keep on trying to tell people every day, and that's why I'm so nice. But he kept on the running gag. He pretended that day never happened. He kept on calling me retarded in the chat. And even though I kept on talking to him, what he would do is if I would roast him, he would ignore it and keep the running gag up. He'd say, I don't have to respond to somebody who has autism. And literally, I'm sitting over here networking with these rappers who actually have all those mental disabilities on paper, literally this and that. So what made him turn really suicidal was when I ended up in Carberry. He could keep all that running gag. He cannot back it up for his actions because he's behind the computer screen all he wants until he has to put his foot step forward. Until he has to literally take a step forward to actually make action. So what happened is he tried to get out Karma and he got rejected over and over and over again. The same thing happened with Layla. And that's what happens when you literally sit on your ass all day. And the first time when you have to take action, you fail and you crumble. And I told him that. It's like, it's all fun and games until you actually have to take a step forward, huh? Until you actually have to get off that chair, huh? It's all fun and games until you actually get serious, until life is actually smacking you in the face, huh? He couldn't run from that. And then literally, then he tried to fight his hormones after trying to keep the running gag of me being a so-called retard in the chat. Literally this and that. Literally, he took advantage of the fact that I didn't have money, but I had permission to fuck those girls. Literally, he took advantage of everything that the outside held. But when he had to take a step forward, he crumbled. And that's the horrible mask behind Livingstone. But people kept on giving them hope. Troy kept on giving them hope. Because the Aaron Rowe didn't validate me winning in every single roast battle with him is the same reason why I stayed low tier. Because they never gave me credit. Just because they don't give me credit doesn't mean that it's not real. Literally, I'm already accepted by a higher company and this and that, and you are literally taking advantage of the fact that he even knows the complexity of the situation. That's why he tries to get me a punch down. He's like, Riz, you get your shit on paper, and all you have to do is suck a dick, Riz. To suck one dick, and then you have everything on paper and shit like that. Knowing that Raven got no pussy, knowing that all the people I work for, he knows the complexity of the situation. That's why he's very crafty. So let me state literally what Livingstone's role is and why it failed, because you need to watch the Netflix show Outer Banks. So Outer Banks is a custom Netflix show I have, and it shows you about the pandemic and why people kept on hating on literally on me and literally everything I stand for. So many people said it doesn't matter if you made nods. It doesn't matter if you this that. Like, how can you say that? Because you know what? There's even anime fans. There are weebs that say it doesn't matter if you made nods. Do you know why? It's because it's coming from me. It has nothing to do with how literally incredible nods is. It's all because it's coming from me, and that's horrible, and that's the truth about this society. It is fucking true. They slandered me in so many ways, shape, and form. They kept on telling me, you know, you gotta sacrifice a little bit in order for them to cooperate. So just, you know, just ignore when they call you a retard. Just ignore it. That's a big more that comes behind that. I worked very hard for me not to be labeled that. I worked very hard for Lily, all that, and you expect me to accept it? So Outer Banks works like this. So Outer Banks is a whole bunch of juvenile delinquents on the beach, and Lily, what happened is Livingstone Lily has a very Mac figure that Lily acts white, like I keep on trying to tell him, and doesn't act too black around his friends, and his white friends do more trouble than he does. That is that's not the main plot, but that's his role in the show. Livingstone in Outer Banks is this guy who is a mark, and Beta is in Outer Banks. My comic book character, Beta, is in Outer Banks, and the reason why they paired him up with Livingstone is specifically to prove a point. I'm like, it's not changing Beta. It's not changing the fact that Beta is great, but it's a big distraction. It's the big reason they want me to cooperate with Livingstone so badly that they put him right side by side in the Netflix show. They put Beta right side inside in Livingstone. So you go watch Outer Banks. Beta is actually, you know, a thug, which isn't his character, so it's okay for me. But on the outside, he's like, literally, fucking, what would happen if Beta was a street punk? That is what Outer Banks is. So the street punk Beta in Outer Banks is constantly punking Livingstone. I'm like, oh, there goes my hooray, you know, stuff like that. Livingstone is still the same. He's still a punk, and Beta is still better than him in Outer Banks. What they did was, if Beta was a bad guy and he wanted to be a gangster, he would be punking Livingstone, and that is literally his role in Outer Banks. Outer Banks is a really crazy-ass Netflix show, and Beta is the most of all the four troublemakers. There's this one Hawaiian girl, there's this main guy, there's Livingstone, and then there's Beta. And Beta is the most of the troublemakers. So the main guy, Lily, leaves off the island. Lily goes on a boat and this and that, and ends up with her girlfriend, where Beta keeps on creating crimes. I'm speaking very metaphorically. They put Beta, his figure, in the show in order to show you this is how desperate people are in order for me to work with Livingstone. They want me to punch down so badly that they put him side by side with him. Alright, you can think that ruins the moment all you want. You can think that. Beta is still fucking Omni compared to Livingstone, and you don't get that. He's still getting punked by my comic book character in the Netflix show, but you keep on wanting this running gag and shit. Okay, man, you're not paying attention. Where they keep on getting at me at is Livingstone made sure he put himself in a good position, but he stayed in the same position, and he never advanced, and that's the horrible thing about his message. So guess what? I kept on talking to him during Jordan every day. He went to the mental hospital over and over and over again. Kept on having multiple injuries to his head, to his body, to his spine. Literally over and over and over again. Literally crying his eyes out why he can't get Layla. Overflowing with hormones. I'm like, dude, I already hit you with too much perspective. Why you keep coming back? And so I heard through the grapevine that he actually had people encouraging him to keep doing it. And that is why this video is called the Susanoo. That's like they kept on encouraging Lisa. They kept on encouraging him. So there was these two girls at Level Up Expo. So if you don't know how I how I pick my cosplayers sometimes I don't pick them based off looks. Sometimes I pick them based off rarity. So there was these two girls. One was actually Blue's Clues, and some was uttered from another American Kids show and shit. And Lily. So, you know, Livingstone made fun of me one time. He's like, I know what your kids are, Riz. Your kids are Elmo Izabaki and Blue's Clues and shit like that. And I kept on laughing at him, Lily. He still be do this and that, and Lily. He kept on taking advantage. And once he got with gangs, oh my god, he got so fucking... Once he figured out that gangs tried to stop you from getting pussy as a whole, he really thought he had it in the bag until he saw me dodge bullets. And then he's like, well, there's still a little hope. They still don't give up, and they're kind of crafty and stuff like that. And then literally a whole year went by, and literally it still didn't work. And literally, and that's what tore Livingstone apart. He held on to each and every one of those hopes, knowing damn well what the bigger picture was going to be. And I remember those days. So what happened in Season 3, what I realized is that Abby actually gave me a nude. Because Abby and I were already talking intimate before. The second date, me and Abby were kind of getting intimate. She had like her cleavage hanging out and like me and this and that. So the whole time I'm not getting a text back from Abby. They're really trying to cockblock me from her. So that's why they roasted me that same season. That's why everything that I was thinking that I was going to was a lie. I improved against Black. I did good against Bush and this and that. But my position stayed the same because they kept on manipulating it. So Livingstone got all that karma at once, and it really, really horrified him. But where it kept him... What happened is, he sent two girls at Level Up Expo, so I tried to get a picture without asking and shit like that. So I'm like, oh, hey, I see you Blue's Clues and stuff like that. So I tried to take a picture, and they're all like, excuse me, I prefer if you ask. Bitch, do you know who the fuck I am? Do you know how irrelevant you are? Do you know who the fuck I am? And you're saying that I have to ask, well, I'm famous for this shit? Get the fuck out. No other cosplayer in the fucking world would do that. And he can say, well, that's how people are. That's how people are raised, Riz. And that's why you don't get out, Livingstone. And that's why, literally, He was fucking horrible. He networked with those girls illegally. I'm like, I hung out with little girls before when I couldn't hang out with people my age too. If you go back to Justice Monster Obsession, yes, I did that before. Sorry to be cringy, but I used to do that. Because that's why you have the strength of having so many people. I realized everything was better than being alone. So what happened to me is I became equivalent to all the people I wanted to hang out with, so I didn't need them anymore. And Livingstone doesn't get that. That's what happens when you're a grown man. You don't need a party because you already are one. And I remember those days when I cut myself the very first time I had a suicide attempt. It was literally when my phone was charging. Literally, I know how Livingstone dresses. He dresses with literally slim fucking jackets. Really slim jackets. Really slim gray jackets. Literally, that square ass shit that he gets at JCPenney's and shit. Literally, I can tell, like, literally, I'm like, bro, I remember his phone was probably charging when he stabbed himself and shit. The same thing happened to me. I went through the exact same thing, but I didn't do it as nearly as often. And literally, where does he get all this encouragement from? And I realized over time, I heard through a grapevine that either a fake friend was encouraging him to talk to a droid, a fake girl was trying to offer him some pussy and this and that. So literally, so I heard that he got everything. I heard that, but then the perspective was already there. He's like, in his head, he's like, it doesn't matter if these girls will text me. These are two little girls, and Riz already has dime pieces and shit like that. It doesn't matter if they're encouraging me. I might get some pussy. I might. But literally, and then I heard that same little Blue's Clues girl, it was sent him a nude and shit. And then he's all like, it still doesn't match up to what Riz has. It was this, that, but it's still a glimmer of hope. And literally, it was horrible. And I thought that I was just poking him the whole time. That literally fucking, that he was being arrogant. I can understand why you're arrogant, but it is kind of like out there. But knowing how the ARO works, it doesn't really surprise me. But then I realized that he had hope because out of all the ARO members, the Livingstone was the most rational. That is very true. If he could call it out, he would. But he knows that would make him lose his position. If Livingstone stood up for me, it would make him lose his position. I'm sorry. And that's how the ARO works. And I knew if the ARO was really nice to me, that Livingstone would love to be my best friend. And that's the sad truth about Lily being him. He used to be, I used to be just like him. I used to do nothing but stay square, listen to Japanese music, fucking this and that. Lily fucking, like, it really fucking sucks. But if the ARO gave me a better reputation, he would have loved to hop on the bandwagon. But that's what keeps him Lily so far off, and it's really fucking horrible. But that is the Susanoo that they gave him. That shit broke, the Alicia shit broke, and all that shit really, really sucks. But this is the Outer Shell. And please go watch Outer Banks. It's literally the best Netflix show out. And literally, that's another reason why why we said that we needed him this now. This is really like the definition of why he had so much potential and shit. So please go check out Outer Banks on Netflix. It was a really heat Netflix show. You really love this shit. This is Boo Tricks, and I'm out.